What's up, guys, and welcome back to a brand new episode of the NeoVintage podcast. I'm Jabril, and I'm here with
Steve. Hope everyone's doing well.
And for you guys who have never seen the show before, we're just two guys that like to talk over the biggest stories in gaming. And we took a little break, but we're back now, and we always like to start with what we've been playing. So, Steve, let me know what you've been playing in our break.
Yeah. So, it's been, I think, 3 weeks, so a little bit bigger, break than we need to, but usually do.
Yeah.
But, I've been dabbling in a few things. So, continuing off from what I mentioned a while ago, I completed Guardians of the Galaxy.
Nice.
And I know we talked slightly off cam, and I know you've picked it up since. And what a fantastic game. This game skyrocketed to the top of my list. I know I had very low expectations. I know the world had very low expectations. I know we're not the only ones who were kind of nervous about this, but the game, skyrocketed it up. I mean, continuing, like I said before, the story is really well written. The characters are really well done. All of the representations and these versions of the characters we know, which obviously mainly everyone knows the MCU versions, and you have a lot of throwbacks to them, but you have a lot of also that core origin comic feel to it. Like I said, I think this Gamora, I like this Gamora a little bit better than what we've seen in the MCU, slightly different. I think this Drax is more in line with the Drax we know, and not so much like that sort of spacey Drax that we got in the MCU, like mentally spacey. But I like that. Again, it wasn't some origin story. This picked up years already. There have been Guardians, and that's the best thing to do. We saw that go in great success in Insomniac Spider-Man. It wasn't an origin story. You jump in already. We know these characters. We know the world knows these characters. Let's get to some of the good stuff. So I had a great time. I know the story gets a little rushed almost at the end. It feels like some characters showed up just because they wanted the characters to show up, and they may have not known exactly where to go in that final arc at the end, where it gets a little stuffy. And I think they were afraid to maybe change the gameplay up a little bit more, or a lot of these final fights, the characters get very spongy, where they're just like health bar, health bar, health bar. And it's fun and all, and you do the huddle up, and you got the music blaring, and you're flying around as Star-Lord, and you're commanding everyone, and that is all great. But just when you're fighting the same giant robot enemy for 10 minutes at a time, and then to make it difficult in the next room, they give you two of them, and you got to do different abilities. It gets a little much, but it was a really fun time, man. And I think when I beat the game, I was just so satisfied. I was like, this was a great experience. No open world nonsense. No gotta go do all these side missions and grindy stuff to expand the story and level up your characters. I played the game at a nice pace. It was just what a great experience it was. And that's why it's jumped up on my list. I know it's time to start talking about our game of the year and stuff like that. And this is something I have to keep an eye on, because not only did I spend so much time with it, I pretty much enjoyed 99% of my time with Guardians of the Galaxy. So super props to them, and I'm curious to see where this goes. It doesn't really sequel bait. I like that it's its own individual story. Obviously, Guardians being Guardians, there can always be more, and the whole space celestial section of Marvel is finally being tapped into, not only in cinema but now also in the game. So super excited for that. So that's something I was able to really sit back and play with during the times I had available. Obviously, have to mention, and I guess we may have missed it. I think we did discuss it. I've been playing a lot of Halo Infinite. Obviously, we know that the multiplayer has launched. We're actually a couple days before the campaign, which I know that's something you and I really want to dive into, is that campaign. And I don't have much more to say about the multiplayer. I think everyone's already come to an agreement that gameplay-wise, it's fantastic. The systems work so well. A lot of the issues we have are obviously in multiplayer is the progression system. Makes little to no sense. Very grindy, very slow. I've played for hours and hours, and I'm only level 5 in the pass. The special event was on, and I got that armor, the samurai armor. But again, you have to really grind and pick and choose. Where instead of you want to play for fun, you got to really go in there, choose a specific weapon, get these little nuances. So besides that kind of little stuff, I'm excited to see these systems and playing that moment to moment as Chief in the single player campaign, where I don't have to worry about someone grappling and sword killing me. I'm excited to see that. So played a lot of Halo, really positive on it. Again, I'm surprised on not how bare bones it is. It's been about 6 years since the last Halo game. A lot of these core factors missing, and I understand that they said Forge wasn't going to be in there and all these other mechanics, but the fact that there's like playlists aren't in there. You can't just go play Slayer or Team Slayer or Free For All. You have to just hope for the best. Like every time I launch Quick Play and I get Oddball, I'm like, oh my, now I have to either quit or sit there. It's just really that's such a default thing for multiplayer games. Like, imagine if Call of Duty, you could not just pick team deathmatch or domination. You'd have to just hope for the best. I think it's a big oversight on their part. I know they've addressed it and they are working on it and they're gonna get some playlists working, but that's just a vital multiplayer thing that I just didn't think would need to be addressed. But having a great time with the multiplayer. I also have to give it a quick shout out that I've been playing also a lot on the xCloud through my phone on Halo, and works surprisingly well. I know it's a little rough because not only am I streaming it, then I'm connecting it and playing online, but I will give it that it works really well there. Super shout out to Microsoft for xCloud. It's been coming in. My life's been a little crazy, but I've had these giant gaps of time where luckily I've had my phone and a control with me, and I've been able to play pretty smoothly. So the last game I've really been jumping into, because there's a bunch of other little minor things I've been played, but the one I jumped into and been playing a lot, and then I took a small break, and then I've jumped back into is Ubisoft's Riders Republic, and I've been having a great time. Let me tell you, it's these sleeper games that I was super hard on early in the year that have come through really great. I spent, not the craziest amount of time, but I want to say about 15 hours into Riders Republic, and it's just such a great casual fun game. It's so weird. the spirit of like Steep and SXX and all these other fun sort of sportsy games all come together in a system that works really well. And I know I didn't get a chance to play in the beta. I remember I think you got into one of the betas testing. Yeah, and it works really well. I'm surprised. I remember being super iffy on the videos, and I know there's like this. Most of the glitches have been fixed where there's like sometimes you would collide with players, sometimes you wouldn't. But the fun aspect that though it is this giant multiplayer open sports game, it's really surprising how I don't need to talk to people. I just jump in, I play my thing, I ride my bikes. It's the aesthetics get a little wonky, and there's a story mode that carries you through some of the main objectives, but it's very much similar to like Forza, where it's like the story is there, but there's no story. The characters are a little cringy. There's this guy in a truck that's drives me nuts, and he's super that sort of that surfer dude bro guy, and he's like your guy who shows you everything. But the mechanics really work fun. I do have a small gripe with the soundtrack. Though some of the songs are really good, the other songs are super, super awkward. There's a weird cover version of Gangster's Paradise.
Yikes.
I don't know who. I don't know. It's a female who sings it, and it's not that it's a female singing it. It's the way it's orchestrated, the music, the sound, the beats. It's got this super awkward. I've never heard this version of Gangster's. I've only ever heard one. I've heard the OG version. I don't know.
It's a gentrified remix. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it is. Oof. Even my wife, who she doesn't like that, she's not into that music, and she doesn't like that version. She doesn't like that song necessarily. She was like, "What are you listening to?" So I pretty much mute it. Luckily on PlayStation, you can put your Spotify in, and we're back to basics. But I don't know who decided this track list, because it's either songs I've never heard of or weird cover songs, which I don't know if it was a licensing thing or they wanted to make sure that they didn't run into issues later on. But it is very awkward when some of these tracks come up while you have a giant bunny head and you're trying to snowboard down a mountain. So a lot of really good stuff in Riders Republic. It is that fun podcast, listening to music, sort of just checklisting game, because they just, and what a map, what a huge map. But I'm glad that it's not afraid to be a game. I'm glad it's just like once you get through some of the tutorials, which is a little much, the game pretty much opens up and you get your jetpack, your squirrel suit, snowboard, skis, your bikes. You have to unlock the different mechanics. It gets really goofy with some of the stuff. I went down on an ice cream vendor truck flying down a mountain, and again, I would laugh, but I'm like, it was fun because it's the different mechanics, and you have to watch on how you want to drive that one compared to if you're driving like a mountain bike. So it's really fun, and I see what they were doing with this. I'm slightly afraid that they didn't like really show it properly or advertise it correctly. I feel like there was a small issue with that, but all in all, I mean the player base seems to be pretty well. People are reviewing it really well and having a great time with it. So I'm glad I'm not the only one that's like, why am I enjoying this? I'm glad everyone who's picked it up so far has been enjoying it pretty well. So those are the main games. Obviously, I mentioned just a little bit. I've been playing a little Forza Horizon 5. It's more Forza in the best way possible, but I believe we discussed that last time. And not much more to share on that. I liked a lot of those mechanics that have been appearing in Forza. A little too much of the social stuff where you have to like ship cars to people and receive cars, and people are shipping really dumb cars, so I'm getting a bunch of crappy stuff in my garage. But besides that, great job for Microsoft. They've been kind of nailing it this year. So that's all the main things I've been playing. I know it's a lot to throw at, but was able to get a lot done in 3 weeks, despite my busy schedule.
For sure.
So that's all I've been into. So what have you been playing?
Yeah, so I have a ton of games I've been bouncing between too. The main thing I've been playing is something that's related to one of the stories, so I'll kind of withhold my judgment for the first story. But yes. I have a whole bunch of other things that I've been playing. One, and don't make fun of me too much, is Lawnmower Simulator on Xbox. It just went out to Game Pass. You know I love simulator games. I don't know why, but literally it's in the title exactly what you could expect from it. You just mow lawns, you adjust the blade length to fit the contract, and it takes real time. Like, it's not something that like takes 5 minutes. Like a 30-minute lawn to a 45-minute lawn is going to take 30 to 45 minutes. It's the exact same process. You need to buy gas for it and everything like that. And so usually, I throw on some music or a podcast and I just have a good time. It's great. It's a great like game to decompress from. Obviously, it is not the main game I'm playing, but no, it's so good. I love it. For people who are into that, who are nutcases like me that like to play like random truck sims and stuff like that, I think it'll do it for you. But the rest of humanity obviously won't even understand why this exists. I understand. Yeah. I also dabbled in Generation Zero for the first time yesterday. It also came to Game Pass. It's like a survival game. It's kind of like a post-apocalyptic by machines survival game, and you kind of live in this very empty world in the way that there's not much in terms of like collectibles. There's lots of lore. There's no real NPCs that I've bumped into yet. It's just a lot of enemies. It's entertaining enough. I think it's a little bleak for my taste. It's probably not something I'm going to stick with, but I did want to give it a shot. I've heard kind of mixed thoughts. Some people like it. I knew a lot of people were not super positive about it when it came out. For me, I'm probably glad that I played it through Game Pass and I didn't purchase this myself, because again, it's a little dry, it's a little bleak. It feels very empty. In many ways, playing it just makes me have more of an inclination to play something like Fallout, that it's also a post-apocalyptic world where you bump into random things around the world and you're by yourself a lot of the time, but the world is so lived in and so many incredible little tiny side quests. Where in this one, it's a relatively straightforward experience in my experience. So yeah, not super positive about it, but I think there is certainly something there that you can probably bang out a couple hours and get some entertainment out of. I've also been playing Metroid Fusion after I finished Dread. Okay. I kind of had like the Metroid fix, and I actually really wanted to play Zero Mission, but then I looked up and I realized there was no real effective way for me to do that besides emulating, which is fine, but I don't really like playing those kind of games on my computer, to be honest with you. I'd much rather play it kind of on a handheld or something like that, or even on my couch or something like that, but not really at my computer. And Zero Mission, the cartridge is like ungodly expensive. It's like I think $120, $140 or something like that to pick up. And as you guys might remember, 3DS had Game Boy Advance games, but only for ambassador people. So, which actually, funnily enough, my girlfriend Alyssa, she has the ambassador games on her 3DS still. So I looked through them, and they had Metroid Fusion, but not Zero Mission. So I was like, oh man, that sucks so bad. So there's no real legitimate way for me to do it, again, short of emulation, which who knows what I'll do in the future related to that. But unfortunately, there's no real legitimate way that Nintendo has offered to play Zero Mission at this point easily, which is insane to me. But so I went to Fusion, which is, another favorite of mine. And yeah, it still holds up beautifully. There's no real negative critiques there. I still am having a great time with that. I'm playing Link's Awakening again, but this time through the Zelda Game & Watch bundle thing that came out. I don't know if you got the chance to pick that up, but I guess I can give my quick thoughts if you didn't. So yeah, if you guys got the Mario Game & Watch, it's the exact same form factor for that same screen, except this one has Zelda 1, The Legend of Zelda, Zelda 2, The Adventures of Link, and Link's Awakening. And yeah, it's just really, really fantastic. I mean, it's a great game. It actually looks really great on the screen, personally. As someone who played it a lot on my Game Boy Advance SP, this is not a far departure from it. And actually, the vibrancy of this mini screen is actually a lot better than even my AGS 101, to be honest with you. Because again, it's so small and so bright. The pixel density is just incredible. And on top of that, it's just so bright that it competes just as well. The only difference is, the form factor. It's a lot tighter in the hand, so I can't have longer play sessions. But no major complaints there. I like it quite a bit. I've dabbled in Forza, just like you. Of course, positive. It's not a far departure from the fourth one. So if you liked Forza 4 a lot, or Horizon 4, you're going to probably love Horizon 5. I agree with you completely about the social aspect. There's way too much bloat in it. I don't like that. Yes. Just the extra stuff. And I understand some people who like Forza is their game can appreciate that, especially if you have like a larger friend group who all play in that and you kind of, bounce off each other all the time. For sure, I get that completely. But I feel like if you kind of opt for a more solo experience, they should, I feel like, cater that a little bit more. Because there's just so much screens. I remember, like, I'm constantly pressing B to clear out of 3 screens of some random XP generator present thingy that they have. Yep. That's the most annoying part of it for me, is that, like, I just want to race. Tell me the races I've unlocked related to the kind of race skew that I'm on. The outdoorsy one and the by the volcano and the storms and all that, the different themes. Let me choose that. Let me go to the waypoint and let me play. I don't want to send anybody a car. I don't want to choose some car XP thing like with this almost slight RPG mechanics. Like, I'm not trying to do all that. So that's the only thing I wish, is that they had maybe a more trimmed down experience for those who opt for it, rather than having this social experience kind of forced down your throat. Then after beating a lot of the games that I've been playing, I played a lot of other games that weren't really hitting, and I needed something to really stick. So I went back to Final Fantasy VII Remake, but the PS5 version, which I actually never played because I played Intermission, but I never got the chance to go back to the proper game, which I had been meaning to. And so right now I'm on Chapter 8 of the game, so that's around the second Mako Reactor attack. Mm-hmm. And and basically I'm at the point, and spoilers for I guess anybody who hasn't played Final Fantasy VII, it's the point when you reconnect with Aerith for the first time. You wake up in the church. That's the moment I stopped. So far, loving the game so far. It's so good. Again, I've sung its praises already, so I'm not going to bore you guys with that again. But yeah, it's still phenomenal. It runs like a dream. I love it. And I do notice the difference between the PS4 version and the PS5 version.
Yes.
Yes. The biggest thing is, obviously, the visuals are gorgeous, of course. It always was, though. It's that performance. When you have that performance mode on, that 60 frames per second is just amazing. I love it. And it makes just the boss battle so dynamic, and just the general combat in general. As you mentioned, I've also jumped into Guardians. I just reached Chapter 11 yesterday. I don't want to go deep into where I'm at because obviously that's massive spoilers. But basically, to be very vague to the people who have played, I'm at the point where you're in the cave with Mantis. I'll leave it right there.
Okay.
But that's where I'm at right now, and I'm super, super positive about it. I have to own up to it, the fact that I was wrong about this game straight up when they announced it. I had my preconceived notions of it. To defend myself a little bit, what they showed wasn't the best, to be honest with you. But no, the game is phenomenal, straight up. It's already, I can say definitively, it's cracked my top 10 for the year, and I think it's a strong contender for a top 5, like a 4 or 5 position for me right now. It's pretty much everything I'd want out of a Guardians game. It runs fairly well if you do performance mode. It does have some what it looks like dynamic resolution, so there are some points where it gets a little bit more demanding and the resolution plunges a little bit. But I would say overall it's a fairly smooth experience. I love what they've done to kind of deepen a lot of the characters. Especially, I feel like this game does Rocket justice so well.
Yes,
personally.
It does.
I love Gamora in this game. Drax is still... Mantis is actually probably one of my favorite characters, what they've done with her. And I feel like it's a nice middle zone because she is definitely like a space cadet in the MCU. And then in the comics, she's this incredibly powerful being that I feel like they've nerfed a little bit. Where, thankfully in this game, I feel like it's actually a middle zone where I feel like there are certain things about her... general demeanor that are very MCU-ish, but there's the kind of like a dynamic energy to her that I think is very unique to this game that is not necessarily like the comics or the movie, that I really, really enjoy. I like this Peter Quill. That was the one thing I was kind of nervous about. I was like, I wasn't sure if I was going to like Star-Lord. But no, he's actually really awesome. I like him quite a bit. I actually kind of prefer him in this role. The thing is, obviously, the hair I don't love. But his demeanor as leader in the team, I like way more than Chris Pratt. Personally, it's personal taste. And Groot is pretty much Groot. You can't really go too much farther than that. I really, really enjoy what they've done in this world, in this universe. The main antagonists are awesome, and actually, I think they just do an awesome job setting up the characters, getting you to know them, and then expanding on them quite a bit to the point that towards the end, I feel like because it explored it so much in the game, I almost feel like I want the MCU to go deeper now, which is one thing I was afraid of, which is like we've had 2 movies in MCU in all these years. Will this game feel like kind of like a shallow look at them, where it's actually now the opposite problem, where it's like they've gone so deep that I want the MCU to go deeper now, which is an awesome problem to have. So very positive about Guardians, and I keep going so I don't take too much time. Pokemon Brilliant Diamond, I pretty much beat it. I'm one battle away from beating it, basically, or the main line of the story, which is the champion. So I beat the Elite Four. The champion I'm on. The problem is, and I completely forgot this, is that Diamond and Pearl's champion is no joke. I completely forgot how tough they are. In comparison to other Pokemon games. And the thing is, I was definitely equipped to beat the Elite Four. I was super underleveled, I think, for the champion. I think I'm going to have to add at least another 10 levels to all my Pokemon, because she has a Lucario that is no joke and is just rocking through my team. And so I might have to kind of like sit down and go back and actually level up a little bit, then go through the Elite Four again and then get the champion, which is a whole nother undertaking that I don't know if I'm like in the mood for right now. But I basically beat it. I think they did a fantastic job for it. If you like if you like Diamond and you wanted a faithful experience to kind of go back and revisit that, I think that's what it does. If you were looking for anything remotely transformative, in lines with maybe what they did with Omega Ruby or Alpha Sapphire, this is not that at all, really. Again, very faithful. Everything from the art style to the just general layout of the world, the way it looks, is just very in line with it. I like it a lot. It gives me the very toy box feel of Link's Awakening, the remake. I like it a lot. I understand why some people are not super fond of it, especially. And again, I'm somebody who really does like Pokemon Sword. I like where Pokemon's gone, personally. Some people don't. I understand that. Personally, I would have loved to see the newer take on Diamond, personally. But I think, all things considered, the team that worked on Brilliant Diamond and now I forget the other one, Shining Pearl.
Shining Pearl.
Yeah, I think they did a solid job. I think they did well on the assignment, and I think people are being a little rough on them. The game runs smoothly, which is sad to say, but Game Freak, they're not the best at like getting smooth frame rates in some of the animations kind of post Ruby and Sapphire, the originals. And so thankfully, this game runs really well. But yeah, the major critique is, it's not transformative anyway, and it can feel very bare bones going back to now, especially coming off of Sun and Moon and Sword and Shield. Going back to that now feels like it's definitely missing a lot of the flair of some of the newer ones. But again, if you want a more faithful experience, I don't think you're going to be let down in that regard. It depends on where you're coming in with Pokemon. And if you're somebody like me, and even you, Steve, I think we're kind of on a similar length of Pokemon, where we kind of go in once a year, play the story, and then kind of move on. Like, we're not somebody who kind of sticks around and does the post-game too much. I think this game will definitely give you the fix if you're looking for. However, in a month, we're getting Arceus. So, to be honest with you, I don't think you're missing anything by skipping this one and just waiting for Arceus necessarily, especially if you're kind of like that once a year type dude. I don't think you're going to be missing too much for that. Lastly, to end it off, I've actually, as a PS Plus game, free game, Kingdoms of Amalur Re-Reckoning came out and was dropped for free. And so I played the hell out of this game. So I'm probably between 15 and 20 hours in right now. And I love it. It's fantastic. I have not played the original, so this is my first time ever playing it. And I love it. It's basically, and some fantasy RPG fans are probably going to hate me for saying this, but for anybody who's never played this before, it's literally Skyrim meets Dragon Age, basically, if you want kind of like a summary of it. And yeah, I like it a lot. It's basically the best of both worlds. It has the kind of mission structure of a Skyrim with the kind of gameplay that feels like Inquisition. So it's a little bit stiffer at times, but I played as a mage and I really, really like it. I like the leveling system. I like the general kind of category of player that you choose to be and the different fates that it has. So the story is cool. Like, I'm not super into deep fantasy like that, so I don't necessarily even know what's going on. It's like Dragon Age in that regard. Like, I know what's going on in kind of a micro sense, but the macro story, I have no clue what's going on.
Yeah,
they use a lot of terms. I'm like, I don't know. And surely, like, when I'm running around the world, I definitely get like Witcher vibes too. So, and it is an older game. Keep that in mind. So it does at times feel very, PS3-ish in that regard. But I think overall it still holds up really, really well, and I'm having a great time with it. So, yeah, that's everything I played. I tried to make it a good time, but I've been bouncing around through a lot of things because I've had a lot of time on the weekends as well.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. Yeah, it's funny you said that because it's the exact reason from your earlier point why I have not picked up Pearl or Diamond.
Yeah.
Because I kind of want I enjoy Pokemon, but it's that once a year fall thing for me. So I'm gonna wait. I will get Legends because again it's a slightly different version and all that other kind of great stuff. So I will be using that as my once a year Pokemon fix unless I either love or hate that game and then I need a balance. Then I could always go back to Pearl and Diamond. So that's cool. And it's funny you bring up the Re-Reckoning or whatever, the remaster version.
Yeah, Kingdom of Amalur.
Kingdom of Amalur, because I'm the same way where it's like people have talked to me about this game forever. And I remember it was a big deal when they did the remastered version, and it's funny, they just announced that there's DLC coming to this remastered version.
Really?
Yeah, there's a trailer out or an announcement out, and the big thing is apparently this DLC is going to be teasing a sort of sequel. From my understanding, again, I don't know what the... That's such a weird title to come back without any expectations or... Because I remember when they announced the remastered version, they said we are working on new DLC for it. So, which is really cool, and I think the only time I've ever seen that before is I think before Borderlands 3, they released DLC to Borderlands 2 like years after the game came out. So that's interesting, and so that is something too that's kind of on, especially when it came to PS Plus. I was like, well, I definitely need to try that now that is included in my membership. So
yeah, definitely worth checking out. I would say for sure. I think
it's definitely one that I'm as soon as I get a gap in time, I will definitely check that one out.
Yeah, and I think your Pokemon plan is also a smart one, to be honest. As I said, I don't think you're missing anything. I say go for Legends Arceus because it's more transformative. The only way I would say go back to Brilliant Diamond is if you play Legends and you're like, this is too far and I want something way scaled back, like the traditional Pokemon is not hitting my fix, then go back to Brilliant Diamond. But I seriously doubt you'll be in that position. I don't think you're missing anything at all, personally. It's not something I regret getting, but it's definitely something that, like, maybe if I got like Riders Republic, I'd probably be more entertained, to be honest with you. So but thankfully, like, games like Guardians are really kind of that combo of like Guardians, Pokemon, and some of the other odds and ends I was playing hit a smooth spot for me. Same thing with Final Fantasy. So yeah,
nice. Well, I'm excited to hear to get into the next story and hear your thoughts on this next story.
Yeah, all right, yeah. So here we go. So while we were out, a major launch has happened, and there's been a lot of things related to it. So I'm going to try to communicate this in the most concise and clear way possible. So this story is by Joe Scrubbles over there at IGN. So November 11th, Grove Street Games, kind of a subdivision of Rockstar, launched GTA, the Trilogy, the Definitive Edition. The launch did not go the smoothest, with these games having a ton of issues. And so many issues that, in fact, that Rockstar had to apologize in a statement. So going into the issues that it's experienced, and it's also important to note kind of why these issues are happening. So kind of on a foundational level, this game series, we now know these three games were built not off of the code off the original PS2 games or even the PS4 on PS2 versions that came out a couple years back. These are actually built off of the mobile versions of these games that Grove Street Games made. And those mobile ports had a lot of issues with them that have directly translated into these console versions. Why they did that, you could only imagine is kind of like a cost-saving, time-saving mechanism. There's a lot of theories as to why Rockstar opted for Grove Street Games to do this, why they opted for these kind of lackluster type flips. My guess, if I just, as an outside observer who's a major GTA fan, I would say this is likely a last-minute turnaround because the GTA 5 next-gen versions didn't make it this year, and they wanted a holiday offering. That's my guess. Other people share that view. Other people disagree. That's kind of my theory as to why. I think this was a very last-minute, hey, is there somebody who can flip this around really quickly? And they didn't even use Rockstar proper to do it. They used Grove Street Games. Some of the major issues people have experienced are obviously insane frame drops, resolution issues. The Switch version is completely botched. Thank God I didn't get that version. The Switch version's terrible. The console versions it actually varies a little bit between Xbox and PlayStation, and there are excellent videos done by Digital Foundry. I highly encourage you guys to check that out if you are kind of on the fence about these games. That I think it gives a good vision of what these games have to offer. There are performance and fidelity modes. The problem is on PlayStation, the performance mode actually doesn't lower the resolution like it's supposed to. So they just uncap the frame rate, which means that you get but that's the problem with the fidelity mode is you can prioritize the visuals. I promise you they barely look any different. Like the only difference is like maybe some shadows and stuff like that. But yeah, it's and then obviously some people have a problem like the rain is barely like you can barely see through it. There is an issue where you wiggle the car gets bigger. That's a holdover from the mobile version. There's some issues that they've since fixed. They've put in fog back again. They've fixed some of the sound effects on the menus. They've restored one of the bridges in San Andreas that to this day, or to the last time I played, never rendered for me. Over in the countryside in Red County, I believe. Yeah, so there has been a ton of issues with these games that they've since been working on. Ideally, you would have liked them to finish the games before release, like developers apparently used to do. These games are like really, really screwed up. On the 30th, they released updates for all three games, which are available now on all platforms aside for the Switch. The updates includes fixes for the remaster's infamous rain effect, the addition of a cinematic camera, and more. The full list is in the link down below. It's important also to mention that there are some artistic choices that not everybody loves in terms of the way the assets look with the characters. I've noticed as someone I've played about 10 hours of 3, about 10 hours of Vice City, and I've almost pretty close to beating San Andreas, so I'm fairly deep in all of them. I've noticed that the character models probably look the most off in San Andreas, and it's mostly due to the clothing choices. I've noticed that like characters like Ryder look completely off. It kind of goes hand in hand with the issue of the algorithmic smoothing that they use or up-resing that they use. It's very obvious if you've played enough time in these games that, and definitely it was an AI that went in and cleaned up a lot of these things. These were not handled by hand, to the point that like if you go to like the Tough Nuts restaurant in Los Santos, that it's supposed to be a donut and then like nuts and bolts, and that they smoothed out the nuts so they're all 3 circles, which literally makes it so it's abundantly obvious that a person did not do this. But yeah, overall I would say the games are playable, and the one thing they have going for them that saved their ass on this one is the fact that the original 3 games are good. That's the only thing that saved their ass on this one, is the fact that the source of those three games, that experience is still great. I love those games. Well, I love 2 of those games. I don't like 3, to be honest with you. I never have. I respect the hell out of 3 for what it did, but I haven't gone back to it for a reason, because I don't like it. I think it's bleak, and I don't like the fact that the cars are made out of tinfoil and explode in 5 seconds if 2 people shoot you. Yeah. But other than that, I would say San Andreas and Vice City are still phenomenal games, and thankfully they have that going for them. I would say as games, those are great. I love them. I'm having a great time with them. As a remaster or a definitive edition or whatever you want to call this, I think it's very crappily and shoddily done, and I'm not positive about the job that they've done whatsoever. I think there are certain things, San Andreas at times looks pretty, and then at times it looks really, really ugly. And I feel like, there's a lot of choices that they made. If you completely took out the fog, the fact that you can see the entire map kind of defeats the purpose of what made this game really awesome once upon a time. So I'm not as negative as some people on it, but I would say that I'm not completely positive on it. Also, as a big GTA fan, yeah, I can extract a lot of hours out of this, but I know a lot of people are not like this and are kind of just wanted to go back to something. I've had the game crash on me a million times. Not Cyberpunk levels of crashing, but certainly you get into mission loops that something is just not working right, so it will crash every time, and you kind of have to stop it and manually load a save before that point and do some stupid change, like change your clothes or don't come in with a car or something like that to make it render right. So it's stuff like that is just embarrassing, to be honest, because these were PS2 games that ran completely fine once upon a time, and now you're taking these PS2 games, reskinning them, putting them on modern consoles, and now they're completely broken on the console that ran Miles Morales and Ratchet and Clank, and Death Stranding, the PS5 version, but it can't run these PS2 reskins. It's kind of embarrassing, to be honest, for them. Have you played these games? Do you have any thoughts on them?
So I dabbled in San Andreas, which is on Game Pass.
Yes.
Because because before I purchased it and before anything, because I know we were texting that we were like, oh, I wonder where to get it, and we heard some performance issues, but when the storm of everything came out with the issues, I was like, well, I'll try San Andreas on Game Pass, and all the issues stand that piece. So most people, I know some people are really down on it. The graphics of it and the art style is something I let go, but yeah, when any of these games, well, from what I've seen, when it rains, these games, I know they fixed it now, it was terrible. It really is, it's unacceptable, to be honest. Yeah. It got to the point where, I don't know if it's a return, but Rockstar removed it from PC at the time. I don't know if it's launched back up or whatever, but they removed it from the PC version, which I'm surprised. Again, it's not to the point, like you said, it's the Cyberpunk, because remember Sony had to step in for that point. Yeah, but that was mainly due to the refund that they were talking about. But it really is unacceptable, and it just makes us wonder more and more on what happened here. And we understand that Grocery probably didn't get enough time. I also don't think they were the team to do this. I'm looking at their list right now of their games. And even though they're named as game developed, their notes, most of them, if 9 out of 10, are port development. This is what they do, is port things. And most of the stuff they're porting, Max Payne Mobile, Monster Madness, Lucha Libre, Ghostbusters the video game. It's all ports to almost all Android and iOS devices. So it makes sense why they use that version. It just doesn't. It's just not. That wasn't the right move. You own these games, and not only did you guys use the worst versions of it, which is on these Androids devices and mobile devices, Androids and iPhones, but then you removed the originals. And I think that's the one that really starts to sting people. Is these 3 games were on PlayStation through PS2 Classics, and now they're not. They're gone. They were stripped off PC. I think they somewhat came back only through the Rockstar launcher. It's just really is unacceptable. I tried to play because these are games that eluded me for so long when I was younger, because my parents were not going to let me play Grand Theft Auto. So I was excited to go into these games after so much time, and even with a little fresh paint, a fresh coat of paint, I'm like, I think this would be kind of cool. My biggest thing were the controls, but everything else was essentially broken at launch. So I had to quickly be like, you know what, I did this. I just put it down. I said, what, because I'm a huge fan of Vice City. I was like, I can't justifiably purchase this right now. I was like, it's all wrong. I can go to my local retro store and pick up all these games for a lot cheaper and hook them up to a PS2. It's really ridiculous, and this is not the company I would have seen this from. Rockstar to just let this, same thing with with the whole Cyberpunk, CD Projekt Red. These are 2 companies we wouldn't have thought would outsource a big deal. These are the 3 games that essentially made you. It also makes me worry because you have to assume GTA 4 is next. Was next anyway on the docket to do it. Now that game's a little bit more advanced. I'm sure that one just needs a couple. That'll probably more just be a visual cleanup. But it makes me worry. But is it going to be these guys? Is it Grocery going to do it? GTA 4 has never been ported anywhere. It's always just been on the console. So if they can't do their own ports correctly or with enough time, are they gonna just drop out GTA 4? Because I haven't played GTA 4 in a long time because I own it on PS3 and it's just hard to access. I know it's on back. I know it's on back compatible on Xbox, but I would like to play the nicest, newest, polished version of these games, but not in this state, because it really is. It's broken. It was super broken at launch. Sometimes past, some stuff has been fixed, but it's still, it just left that bad taste in many, many people's mouths.
Yeah, and I mean, even it's a tricky situation because it has all these technical issues, but even the things that are working as intended, as they wanted to, are problematic to some ways. Like, one of the biggest things I think they touted beforehand was the controls, the completely redone controls, and sure, to driving to some extent I think has been improved quite a bit. That shooting, I think your mileage may vary across the 3 games. That is not. I know they're saying like they don't even mention GTA 5 shooting in the same breath as some of the shooting in this game, because it's not even close. And I understand they are limited in terms of what you can do, short of remaking the game completely. So I understand that. But even some of the controls that are applied across or updated across the games are vary from game to game. So like the shooting of GTA 3 are not the same as San Andreas. So actually getting through San Andreas, you can move and crouch, and then snap up from cover and shoot people. It's not exactly snap to cover like GTA 4 is, but you can place yourself in a place, hide behind cover, and then respond and shoot, where you can't move when in a crouch in Vice City, for example. And shoot back. So your mileage may vary in terms of the shooting experience from game to game, and that's the problem. Is they made it seem like there's going to be some massive overhaul when I have access to these original games that I played not too long ago. I know exactly how the original ones feel, the PS2 ones, and this is not the most transformative one. Is San Andreas, most definitely, and that's kind of across the board. I feel like San Andreas got a better treatment than the other 2, to be honest with you. But I would say, overall, they weren't as rehauled as I feel like they purported to be, and we haven't even mentioned the fact that they didn't even they tried so hard to not even show this game before it launched, and I didn't forget that. The fact that no one had advanced copies, no reviews came out before the game launched, so all these people took the L, like myself, gave them that $60, kind of on a blind faith. and we got shot in the foot because of that. We shot ourselves in the foot, unfortunately, because if I had seen the reviews and I got a chance to actually just see this game in motion a day beforehand, no, I wouldn't have bought it straight up. Like, I probably wouldn't have, and I would have just held off because I don't think it's transformative enough. I have copies of this trilogy owned digitally on my PS4 or now PS5, that since I own them already, I can play them. And again, like, part of me wants to just download them and like compare and contrast and see how they run, just straight up on the same hardware. But yeah, overall, I think it's incredibly disappointing. And once upon a time, like a month ago, I would have thought that this would have been a notable mention for Games of the Year, personally. That's where I thought. Because they just showed the screenshots, and the screenshots looked great. And I was like, all right, yeah, this is going to be fine. Yeah, the character designs looked a little wonky, but overall, I would say I'm not too mad at it. And just for it to come out in this state, like, just completely... I cannot believe I live in a universe where these 3 games are trash, or they made a trash collection of them, and Guardians is good. Like, I cannot believe that things played out this way. Like, I never would have thought that it would have. Just like last year, where I was so convinced that Cyberpunk was going to be my game of the year, and I couldn't even in good faith put it in my top 5 because of the state it was in. So yeah, things sometimes don't play out the way you think it's going to play out. It's a real shame. But I'm gonna keep my eye on it. I do own these, and so since I put money towards these, I'm keeping my eye on it, because if I do still have yet to play it with this newest update, so I can report my findings next week with how my experience is with them. I've kind of put them on pause until I feel like they fix it, and I've kind of gone to Final Fantasy VII because that game actually freaking works. So I'm having it on pause for right now, but I'll be sure to go back to it and let you guys know what I think.
Yeah, I will be waiting a while. They just delayed the physical copies, so...
Especially for Switch, that's 2022 now.
Yeah, so I'm hoping that when they do officially, like, alright, here's the physical copies, then it'll be in a way better state, and I'll be like, well, if they're confident to release it physically, then now I will attempt it from the get-go. Because I really do want to play Spice City, but again, I can go to the retro store and get it for like $7 probably, so... We'll see how it all really folds out for them.
Yeah, most definitely.
All right, the next story, a 2-parter. So there's gonna be a quick thing that it's kind of unfolded for a couple weeks now, and then of course it's all kind of connected to the Game Awards slightly. So the Game Awards are set to take place this Thursday, December 9th. They will start at 4:30 Pacific time or 7:30 Eastern time with the pre-show. Jeff Keighley has announced the nominees for the Game Awards 2021, and we'll get to the list and a few thoughts and I guess somewhat guesses on what's going to win. But the big issue that was happening was that before we get into the nominations, it's worth noting that amidst all the allegations of discrimination and sexual harassment at Activision Blizzard, the Game Awards creator and host Jeff Keighley has confirmed that beyond its nominations, Activision Blizzard will not be part of this year's show. Keighley shared the news on Twitter while also condemning harassment of any kind in the workplace or otherwise. The controversy kind of comes that at first, the Game Awards, not specifically Jeff Keighley, were saying that they weren't going to pick a side almost with the Activision Blizzard, which again we completely. I mean, I know we slightly talked about it before. It's unacceptable on what's happened at Activision. The fact that all these higher ups, the board, and all of them are still kind of just sitting and waiting, hoping it blows over. Basically, I mean, you've had all the harassment, all that stuff, unacceptable, and we stand with the victims. I understand what the Game Awards was trying to do with at first kind of not choosing a side. And the big one everyone was throwing back in their face is Jeff Keighley went out there and publicly yelled at Konami when them and Kojima was going on. So for that, because he had a personal stake, he was confident and okay with publicly choosing a side. And obviously when this is from my understanding, a way more severe situation, they don't want to make a comment. So I am glad that they kind of just came out. They made the comment that besides nominations of whatever games and things like that, they're not going to represent or really promote Activision. I'm wondering to what extent that goes. The Game Awards has a lot of contracts for reveals and stuff like that, so I'm curious on how it's going to unfold. I usually watch the Game Awards anyway. At first I was a little weary because I was like, wow, if they're really not going to choose to say something about the Activision Blizzard thing, I'd be surprised. I mean, Sony came out and mentioned it. Microsoft came out and mentioned it. To whether they act upon that is different. But before we get into the list of the categories, anything you want to mention on the whole debacle with Jeff Keighley and the Game Awards, Activision Blizzard?
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of conflicted on it, to be honest. Part of it is that, well, obviously when they were like, we don't want to take a stand at very first, I thought that was absolutely ridiculous, because I mean, this is not Xbox versus PlayStation. This is not Red Sox and Yankees. This is right and wrong. Like, I don't know how you take a side on sexual abuse. You know what I mean? Like, you either stand for what's right or you don't, straight up. So I was glad when he came out and released a statement. But I was also conflicted, because I think this is certainly a step in the right direction from taking a stand against an abusive company. But at the same time, I want to make sure that Activision is not made the scapegoat for a systemic problem. Abuse in the game industry does not begin and end with Activision Blizzard. And mind you, there are notable companies involved with the show that are also facing very similar allegations. So, like, I don't think Ubisoft is exempt from any of the criticism that Activision Blizzard should be getting. I think, but it's also, it's a tricky situation, because, what does the response look like? I know Ubisoft responded in a very different way than freaking nutcase Bobby Kotick over there at Activision Blizzard. So I understand why the response might vary from one situation to the other. I just want to make sure that, that the game industry doesn't use them as kind of like a scapegoat as to not address more systemic problems, because what they've described is not something unique to Activision Blizzard. It was particularly bad there, but from what I understand, victims have come out from many developers saying that this is a problem with the industry as a whole. And so I hope that they don't try to scapegoat Activision Blizzard, and that they take an honest look at the game industry as a whole and maybe reassess the relationships with many companies. I also heard some people talk about the fact that it's great that they're not involved with the show itself, but how about taking a real hard stance and not even let them be included with nominations? I understand that thinking, but I think the problem is when you deal with nomination, where is the room for objectivity? You know what I mean? If something is objectively a game of the year, to a certain extent, you got to acknowledge what is for what it is. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes, and you bump into this with a lot of different pieces of art, where it's like sometimes a piece of art is made by a screwed up person, but sometimes you can't deny the fact that it's like, well, yeah, this is the album of the year, or this is this piece of art of the year, or like, this is one of the most successful, or one of the most impactful, or one of the most influential piece of art, despite the circumstances that exist around that piece of art. You know what I mean? And it's not necessarily a separate the art from the artist argument, so much as sometimes you have to look at things objectively. And so if Activision Blizzard had a game of the year or something else in one of the nominations, you sometimes have to look at things objectively, because otherwise then you're playing a game of kind of altering results in terms of realm of acceptability. So these are the nominations based on what are the games of the year by people that we're cool with. You know what I mean? And that is an entirely different situation. So I understand why Jeff Keighley might not want to take that full step there. Because I think that's slippery territory where you're going to bump into altering results, especially with fan vote stuff. Like, let's say the fans overwhelmingly vote for an Activision Blizzard or Ubisoft game to be the player choice game, and then you make the executive call to be like, well, nah, because we're not really rocking with them and we're going to choose something else. That's a little disingenuous as well, and I can see that leading to problems as well. So that's kind of my general thoughts about it, where it's like, I think it's certainly a step in the right direction. I'm glad that they have nothing to do with the show, but at the same time, I'm curious to see what this actually looks like when all the dust settles. It's like, reveals, like, there are things signed off. Like, are they really going to have zero parts of the Game Awards, or are they going to just not have people up front talking? Like, I'm curious to see what the extent of that is, but I would overall say that this is a good move by the Game Awards. Yeah,
absolutely. So, and we'll see how it really rolls out. Like you were saying, like, how much will they just not announce that? Because Activision's a publisher, will they not talk that Activision? You don't really find out who's publishing a game during the Game Awards. It's usually who's developing it. So which you can sometimes...
Call of Duty here. Like, that's what I'm curious. It's like that. It's a bold movement.
You can usually follow the strings. I'm like, certain companies only work for Activision, so it'll be a weird choice. And I'm surprised. This is such a weird thing because I would have understand not making any comment, but the fact that they were like not picking a side, it's really weird.
Yeah, that was nuts.
Yeah, so sliding up, we'll go through some of these. And it's funny because I'm looking at the list. I don't even see. Did Activision publish any of these games that we're going to even discuss?
None that I saw. I think they fall more into the multiplayer and esports categories that I'd include. So.
Which obviously, Vanguard's going to be.
Yeah, that was my guess is where they fall. I didn't talk about it much, but if you guys want a comprehensive list of every category, you can go on thegameawards.com and that has everything.
Yeah, I have the site up now because it's just to keep things. It's a huge list.
Yeah, it's massive. So I tried to include some of the categories.
We're gonna go through, and the ones that we've had some choices too. So now here's some of the categories and nominations. So first for the big one, Game of the Year, and I think this list, though there's some solid titles on here, shows that this year was sort of the recovery of COVID. There's not that definitive one. There is the one I think that's gonna win. I think it'll probably be obvious that it's gonna win. Possibly we'll see. So we have Deathloop, It Takes Two, Metroid Dread, Psychonauts 2, Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, and Resident Evil Village. And a quick side note, I keep forgetting Resident Evil Village came out this year.
Right? Yeah, it feels like last year.
I'm like, wow, that really was this year. So any feels, any guesses?
Yeah, so my personal Game of the Year of these choices, I'm definitely going with Metroid Dread. I think there is it's tough. So the ones that I definitely don't think are taking it, it's definitely not It Takes Two, even though I got to give them credit. They put forth a really awesome game. To be honest, I'm super surprised Psychonauts is there. I'm not mad at it. I know that you're a massive fan of Psychonauts. I'm just really surprised to see them in Game of the Year territory. That was really surprising to me. Deathloop, I was surprised to not see Returnal in Game of the Year, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Really, I'm surprised that like Psychonauts and It Takes Two were in there, but like Returnal wasn't. That was kind of strange. But yeah, I'm conflicted because I could see Resident Evil Village winning because I remember the cultural impact of that game when that came out.
Correct.
And that's what I think gives it an edge above the others, where it's like Ratchet and Clank, amazing game, very gamer culture centric. It didn't spill out to the mainstream the way that Resident Evil Village did. Exactly. And that's the same thing that Deathloop has going for it. However, Metroid is a latent franchise that it's been a long time since they've come back, and I think people would love to give Nintendo a nod finally. It's been going on 4 years since they've even had somebody in the contending for that. The last time that I think they had some game in the contending was Breath of the Wild and Odyssey. So
correct.
It's since 2017,
I believe.
It's been since Nintendo, I think, had a really solid, undeniable offering for Game of the Year. So I could also see them trying to give Nintendo a nod this time. But what are your thoughts? What's your Game of the Year?
Yeah, if I had to pick from this list, I'd have to give it to Resident Evil Village.
Okay.
Super biased, obviously. I love Capcom. I love Resident Evil.
Great game.
But the fact that I at least dabbled or at least played. I'm actually playing It Takes Two with my wife right now. I forgot to mention that. Really great game. Game of the Year. I don't know, and I could see why people would say it's Game of the Year. I would say it's more like Experience of the Year because of how co-op centric it is. But Resident Evil, just did so much unexpected. Where I loved Ratchet and Clank. I platinumed Ratchet and Clank.
Yeah.
I got the platinum. But it didn't do anything new.
No.
It was Ratchet and Clank. It was, by the nuts and bolts, pun intended, I guess. It was Ratchet and Clank. It's exactly what I expected. Looked fantastic. Played great. A few bugs here and there, but it was fantastic. So that's why I feel like Resident Evil is going to kind of take it, one, the multi-platform, so more people were able to play it. The horror aspect, the whole Twitch genre of people, tuning into this stuff. Some of those really, really are. I mean, Lady Dimitrescu was everywhere. It was a phenomenon.
Yeah.
And she has a spoiler. She has a very small part, basically, of Resident Evil.
Yeah, she's not even the main character or anything like that.
No, she's not the main villain. I'm like, wow, G Fuel made this giant tub of her, and I'm like, that's why I would have to guess that one that would be my choice.
Yeah.
I see it going to Metroid Dread. I see it for all the reasons you said, I feel that Nintendo, not only did they take forever to release another Metroid game, and Metroid and Kirby's are always treated so badly by Nintendo, that to come out after so much time, a short waiting period from announcement to release, and it was good. People were, I mean, there's some people who really hate on the game design, stuff like that. David Jaffe just does not vibe with it. I love him.
He was nuts for that. What is he? Has he ever played a Metroid game? What is he talking about? I know exactly what you're talking about. He's nuts.
Yeah, that's a whole nother thing we can discuss. I love him, but he does not vibe with the game, and I get that. Yeah. I respect it. I don't understand all his points, but I think this Thursday it will go to Metroid Dread. Deathloop. Nothing about Deathloop has spoken to me, and I think the more time goes by, the more people are off this Arcane high, and they're really starting to give it to Deathloop. And I think it's going to really show when it does come to Game Pass next year, that people are going to be like, this is the game everyone was talking about. Like, I think there is just an over hype of that game. So that would be my thing. I think Metroid would take it. I would vote Resident Evil Village.
Yeah, two things. So one thing, and I mean this in the nicest way, not Mr. Conspiracy Man, but Deathloop gives me the vibe of like an industry plant pop artist that like the industry is trying to convince you is the next big thing, and it just really ain't. Like the way Sony's marketing got behind Deathloop, and we saw it every single show, and what you actually got from the experience, I don't think necessarily syncs up. But again, I've dabbled with Deathloop. I haven't played a lot of it. It's not really my thing. I think it's good, but like Game of the Year, Now I need one point of clarification before we move on from you. You played Psychonauts, I think, all the way through, correct?
Psychonauts 2?
Yeah, Psychonauts 2.
Yeah. So I've played a lot of it.
All right, so but you know enough about it. I've only played maybe an hour of it at this point. To me, I was super surprised to see it in Game of the Year. I thought it was good. I think it was a solid sequel, but it didn't scream Game of the Year, transformative, like, oh my god. Am I wrong about this game? Like, is it legendary or something like that? And I just didn't see it. I'm just like, what am I missing here?
So I'm a huge Psychonauts fan. You know, I have it. I have the first one. I have the VR version. I'm a huge Psychonauts fan. I was ecstatic for Psychonauts 2. When I played Psychonauts 2, and I've played, like I said, a decent amount, and the fact that I didn't beat it should actually speak some vibes to it. It feels like it's mixed. This game has obviously had a sort of development hell for a while. Xbox really came in with the funds and really helped push it. You gotta remember, Psychonauts 2 had like this weird Kickstarter, then Double Fine got purchased by Microsoft, and that kind of shows where Psychonauts 1 it's a semi-open world type game. But Psychonauts 2 focused on expanding that, where it is basically an open world game that you eventually get to some linear sections. And when you're doing those sections, it really works out well. But I think there's a lot of pacing issues. I think the characters are really off. I think I do appreciate the sort of push and representation of the mental health. I think when they take topics of depression and multiple personalities and all these, the list goes on and on. I think that is great, and I think if they would have focused on that a little more, PTSD and all these things, focused on those experiences a little more in a linear fashion, it would have been better. It would have been almost a better experience. I think the fact that they were like, let's make this as big as you can. Let's add in Rasputin's. This happens early on. Rasputin's family shows up, and let's give it a twist with. I'm not gonna go too spoilery, but this character shares a special bond with Rasputin. It just feels like the game. It feels like the game was just out. I feel like there was no hype to it. I know we saw it at some conferences. I think there was a confusion if this was an exclusive or not an exclusive. If it was treated well. This didn't get a physical release, so it wasn't treated as a, though we're in an age where every game comes out almost physically and digitally. This game came out only digitally, so if you were a physical player, physical collector, this almost seemed not less of a title. The VR game that came out for Psychonauts, I own it physically. It came out physically, and that's just a very small experience. That was like a $25 game. So it just, there's something wrong with Psychonauts 2. I don't know what it is. I've taken a break from it. I do want to go back to it. I may even restart it and really dive into it, because so much of what I love the Psychonauts 1 is there. I am surprised that it's in Game of the Year when other titles aren't. I just don't know if people are focusing on the one thing of the representation and forgetting that at the end of it, it does need to be a game or a true experience, and that's what it's lacking. I think it's lacking a balance. Now, in a couple of weeks, I'd love to come back and be completely wrong and vote for it. Like, if this were somehow win Game of the Year, I wouldn't be mad at it. I'd probably be pushed more to go back and replay it. But there is something off with Psychonauts 2. And I think it's a child of its health development. Again, Kickstarter's Xbox coming in half and half, PlayStation half and half, Xbox. There's something off with it that I think almost everyone, when they saw this list, was like, Psychonauts 2?
Yeah.
And it's just weird. It is weird.
I just wanted to check, because I was like, am I tripping? Because, like, and I mean this in the nicest way. Can a game be Game of the Year if only people in that respective fan base even care about it? Like, was anyone made a Psychonauts fan through Psychonauts 2? Like, that's my question. And I don't think so. Like, I think Psychonauts 2 was really, really exciting for Psychonauts fans. People who loved the first one. And I think the people who played the first one, a lot of them really love Psychonauts 2. And that's so awesome. That's great. I'm super happy for them. But Game of the Year, to me, suggests that, like, the industry can come together and it's like, yeah, this is the one that did it in 2021. And the industry, I don't think, even acknowledged this game, to be honest with you, because I don't think a majority of people even knew this came out. A majority of people, I don't think, even knows that Psychonauts has a sequel. Like, that's how much I feel like it kind of just came out and people were like, they didn't care. And not because it's not a good game. It's just because I think the amount of fans, I look at this a lot like Oddworld. In that way, where it's like, I think Oddworld fans are Oddworld fans and Psychonauts fans are Psychonaut fans, and I don't feel like it's something that kind of spills outside of that. And so it's zero hate to this game, but I was really surprised to see it there, because I don't think anybody was really checking for this game, to be honest, like that, other than massive fans of the franchise. But I'm at the same time, I'm really excited to see a game of this scale made by Double Fine get that nod. I think that's really awesome to see a smaller team be able to even crack that. Personally, I would have loved to see Kena, Bridge of Spirits, actually in that place, or if not in place of them, but also additional to them. Personally, but
exactly.
It is what it is. It's not my show. We can kind of move on, but
or else I can go on forever talking about the issues with that. But best game direction is next, which that's a tough one to always go through, because it's like such a weird discussion for best game direction, and their definition is awarded for outstanding creative vision and innovation in game direction and design. So the choices we have are Deathloop, Arcane Studios, It Takes Two, Returnal, Psychonauts 2 again, and Ratchet & Clank vs. Cart. Basically the same list except without Resident Evil. Really interesting choices, because I feel like some of these just don't make sense. My guess, not my guess, I feel Deathloop's gonna get this one for sure, but just because, like we were talking about, there's this industry and influencer push for Deathloop. I would actually give it, and I'm not a fanboy of anything, we have everything. I would actually have to give it to Returnal. Now, though I did not mesh with that game, though that game was not designed for me, I respect the style of it, the sort of repetitiveness, the roguelike. I also like the way its storytelling is. This has this low-key horror vibe to it. That would be my vote, would be Returnal. I see it almost completely being without a fight. It'll probably be Deathloop. What do you think for best game direction?
Yeah, for me, it's absolutely Returnal, because, to be honest with you, of this list of games, I think it's the only one that really did innovate on any formula in any real new way. The way that they like ingratiated the story into that world, that aesthetic is just incredible in my opinion. So I have to give it to Returnal. I could also see it going to Deathloop, even though I wouldn't agree with that necessarily, because again, we've seen the kind of Groundhog Day loop stuff before in pretty much any kind of rogue game. Just it's the first person shooter. It Takes Two, awesome game. I respect it. How does it really break from the formula of No Way Out in really any way? I don't think it does. So I can't give it innovation there. Psychonauts 2, again, doesn't break from the formula dramatically from Psychonauts 1. And Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, I think all the innovations, in quotes, of Ratchet and Clank are mostly technical in terms of things that the hardware can physically do that previous iterations of hardware couldn't do, which is the Rift situation, being able to change the world on a dime. But again, I don't think that's, and I mean this in a nice way, a creative thing so much as it's a technical thing. Like, it's a technical showcase of, like, oh my god, we can render a new world in real time, or reskin the world, or change your location immediately because of that SSD processor. That is what I think the difference is, not so much in anything creative. The only thing that I look at that is a creative innovation in a major way is probably Returnal. So yeah, I'm going with that.
Yeah, I completely agree, and it makes sense. Best narrative, which is, it's always a hard one too, because the experiences are so different. Once again, we have Deathloop. I will lose my mind if Deathloop wins Best Narrative, because from what I've seen, the story is non-existent. No. And yes, I know there is a story there.
It's an aesthetic thing for that game.
Yeah, it is. It Takes Two, Life is Strange, True Colors, Marvel's Guardian of the Galaxy, and Psychonauts 2. So, this one's another hard one, because the story that's being told in some of these games, listen, you and I just praised Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy. The story is really solid, but it wasn't like groundbreaking, pulling emotional strings. It is some of the elements we've already seen, in my opinion. Same with Psychonauts 2. I think the elements that they talk about are really well. I think the story is kind of just there. I'm sure, if I have not got a chance to play Life is Strange True Colors, I'm a huge Life is Strange fan. The game just came out at a bad timing. I think it's actually on sale, like for $25, so it might be the time for me to jump in. I'm sure that would be my choice, would be Life is Strange, if I got a chance to play it. So I feel like Life is Strange is going to take it. I think that's what the board is going to go with. If I had to choose one of these games, it's almost like default for me. I'd have to pick Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy, though I don't think it did something fantastic. I think the story and the characters were done so well the whole time. The game takes about 16 hours to beat, and the whole time I was intrigued. Though they use the word flark too much, the rest of the game was really well done, and I think that's where I'd have to go. So what's your view on Best Narrative?
Yeah, when I saw this category, honestly, my only reaction was kind of like, yikes, because I was just like, is that the best stories that we had this year? But I was like, I thought about it. I was like, yeah, I guess so. And it's crazy, because if you look at like last year with Final Fantasy VII Remake and Ghost of Tsushima and all that, it's like, and Last of Us too, for some people like that. And then you come to this year and it's like, yikes. All right, well, yeah, so it's tricky. So in terms of who's going to actually win, I don't think anyone stands a chance against Life is Strange. The way that fan base loves that game, and the way that the industry overall, it's kind of like an industry darling game. And then I think this is their moment for sure to win. For me, and I watched that game played through for the most part, so I have a good understanding of the story. It's okay. Like, I think it's okay. Like, I like Life is Strange, I do, but like, am I blown away by the plot of True Colors? No, not really. But the same thing with Guardians. Like, I think Guardians has a fun story. It's really fun. It's a great game. But, like, is it revolutionary? Of course not. Based on what you've described by Psychonauts, I think that if they won this category, I think that's a little bit more appropriate, especially with them playing with a lot of the mental health aspect and stuff like that, and expanding the lore of that kind of world that they set up so many years ago. I would not be mad if they won at all. I think that's a much more fair place to place them, especially because, again, on the technical front and the innovation front is not what makes Psychonauts 2 special. But I think in terms of, especially if you put them in like the next category, I think is also a great place to put them as well. I'm not mad at that. So So personally, I think that Life is Strange is going to blow everybody away. But I guess I'm in the exact same situation as you. I guess I'm going with Guardians, which is nuts because I don't think the story is that good. But I guess out of these choices, that's what I got to go with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a weird one. That's going to be one to that represents the year we've had with video games, in a sense. So best art direction for outstanding creative and or technical achievement in artistic design and animation. Again, we have Deathloop, Ratchet, and Psychonauts. Now we have Kena Bridge of Spirits by Ember Lab and The Artful Escape, the Annapurna game. This one, I have no idea. I have zero. My vote would be Kena Bridge of Spirits. I think for Ember Lab, this is just, they nailed this aesthetic, this feeling, this world, all just really gels. Psychonauts 2 for me feels like the HD version of what we played in 2005, and that's not a bad thing. I think it's a solidified. I just think that art style we've seen, Double Fine has a specific way to do their games. This is what their games should look like in HD, 4K, and all that fun stuff. Same with Ratchet. Ratchet is more Ratchet. Deathloop, I have to just say, it looks like the rest of Arcane stuff. So it's weird because it's been a while since I've played something like Kena that looks like Kena. So or Kena, I know there's a weird pronunciation. The Artful Escape, I didn't even know this game existed. I'll be honest. Listen, I can't find every game in existence as a release. I have no idea what it is, so I can't even vote. If I'd have to guess to who would take it, God, I hope it's not Deathloop. It better be literally anything else but Deathloop. I would be okay and understanding it. I think obviously Kena has more of that. Everyone talked about Ratchet and Clank looking very Pixar-y. I think Kena blows Ratchet and Clank out of the water in that subject. But that's just my opinion. What about you?
Yeah, thankfully I've actually played all these games, including The Artful Escape. Personally, I'm actually going with Artful Escape. The aesthetic of that game is insane, with the neon lights and stuff like that. So I'm actually going with Artful Escape for my personal pick. Ratchet and Clank, I think, has a cool aesthetic, but it's not new at all. Psychonauts 2, I think, is very unique. So, again, not mad if they win this at all. Personally, just my personal taste, I've always found Psychonauts to look hideous. Personally, that's just I don't like the way they look at all. Yeah. It's like weird claymation Invader Zim to me. I just don't like. But Kena, I like a lot. Obviously, I love that game. I actually want that to win in another category. The art direction of this game is solid, but that's not, to me, what really takes it to the next level. So I'm going with Artful Escape. Deathloop, I think, has a cool, like, kind of 60s spy aesthetic that I'm not mad at all. But yeah, it to me, it's just not, it doesn't take it over to the next level. So yeah, I'm going with Artful Escape for this one. I would love for a team like that in a game on this scale to be able to win a category.
Yeah, I gotta dive more into it, and I will before.
Really cool looking game.
To see really what it's about. Next up, sorry, refreshed. Best score / music. We have The Artful Escape, Cyberpunk 2077, Deathloop, Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy, and Nier Replicant. I actually am just gonna pass this one straight to you because I don't have one clear answer for myself. From what you've told me, I think it's probably gonna go to The Artful Escape. I enjoyed Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy's music, but it is all licensed music, so to me that just doesn't really,
that's just a soundtrack,
jive correctly. Yeah, it's just the soundtrack, so that's why I a little bit of Cyberpunk. The Cyberpunk have, I think Cyberpunk has licensed music as well, at least when I played it. So I literally don't know. I literally could not tell you. So I'm gonna say probably The Artful Escape's gonna win it, just because from what you've told me, the little I've seen of it. But that could probably change. Nier Replicant is just a remake based an HD port, and I know, and this is not a stab at Nier fans. I've tried Nier. I understand the music and how it is. I just don't think it's like outstanding, where it's like where I'm gonna listen to this elsewhere. So passing this one's all for you.
Yeah. So for this one, I'm a little conflicted. So I haven't played Nier Replicant. I've only played Nier Automata, so I can't speak on that. Automata had amazing music. So if that was here, obviously I'd choose that. But I've not played Replicant, so I can't speak on that. Artful Escape, great music, not mad at it at all. Guardians, no, absolutely not. Again, great 80s songs, but again, these are not original songs. These are kind of existing. Like, can I really give them credit for like Wake Me Up When You Go Go? Like, come on.
Exactly.
I haven't played enough Deathloop to say definitively what I think about the soundtrack, to be honest with you. So it's not something that I've really thought about too much. Cyberpunk, bold for them to put them there. And this is where we're going to start seeing a couple categories with Cyberpunk. And again, it's a very tricky game. To even kind of quantify where that stands. I like Cyberpunk's music overall. I like the aesthetic of it, but again, not taking it to the next level for me. So personally, I got to go with Artful Escape. But I'm not mad if Nier Replicant wins. I'm not surprised, just because if it's anything remotely close to Automata, I think that's probably fair. But I haven't played it, so I don't know.
All right, yeah, makes sense. Okay, best performance. So we have Erica. I apologize if I destroy these names. Erica Mori, Life is Strange. Giancarlo Esposito in Far Cry 6. Jason E. Kelly in Deathloop. Maggie Robertson, Resident Evil Village. And Oizaima Akaga from Deathloop as well. This one I can... This is a weird one, because I love Giancarlo Esposito. I think he's great. I think... what I've seen him in Far Cry, I have also gotten back to Far Cry, so I've seen him more now in Far Cry, and he is great. It fits the universe. I think he is more Giancarlo Esposito, which is not a bad thing. I've seen them obviously in Mandalorian and Gus and Breaking Bad and other projects. I would have my vote, and I guess my guess would win just because of the character and the way he just took the world by storm. Maggie Robertson, from Resident Evil Village, because she, unless I'm correct, she played Lady Dimitrescu. Yeah.
Yep. Correct.
I'd have to. I think everyone's done a good job. The parts I've seen of Deathloop, the voice acting as for Colt and Juliana are actually really superb, which is why I wish the game was a little bit different so I could experience it better. So I shout out to all these actors who were able to really knock it out. I think Maggie's going to take it just because of the phenomenon that was Lady D. So that's my guess. What are you going for?
Yeah, I don't think anybody stands a chance against Maggie in terms of actually winning. Because again, as you said, it was a phenomenon. I love Giancarlo Esposito in Far Cry 6. He was great. So I'm not mad at that at all. Erica Mori, I'm not, and again, Deathloop, solid voice acting, not mad at those. And again, I think Deathloop is overwhelmingly overrepresented at this Game Awards, but I think these two are fair, personally. Yeah. Erica Mori, I think she was good, but I wasn't blown away with it. Funnily enough, I actually didn't know. So there's a music artist named MXM Tune, great pop act, and they were responsible for the soundtrack of Life is Strange. What is it? True Colors. And they did the singing voice of the main character. And I didn't realize that MXM Tune didn't do the speaking voice. So this is the first time I heard of Erica Mori. I was like, wait, I thought MXM Tune did that. But I looked it up. No, only the singing voice. So yeah, Erica Mori, solid, but I'm not blown away with it. Personally, if I have to vote, I'm probably going Giancarlo, just because, again, El Presidente Castillo. Like, come on. Castillo. So he's the best. But Absolutely. Maggie, I mean, come on, she's gonna demolish like this.
She's gonna clean. Yeah, I think it'll. I'd be surprised if she doesn't.
Yeah, anything with Lady Dimitrescu or whatever she's taking it pretty much.
Yeah, for sure. Next up, there's a bunch of other ones, but next one we're discussing is Best Indie, where we have 12 Minutes, Death's Door, Inscription, Loop Hero, and Kena Bridge of Spirits again. Now, besides Kena, I've seen some of 12 Minutes. I've seen a lot of actually Inscription because I'd like to watch it, but there's no way I'm playing that weird card game. And I haven't had time to go to Death's Door yet. So I really can't vote on this because I don't know enough of the games. I've seen what these games have done. I remember when 12 Minutes came out, everybody was talking about it. I saw Death's Door. People were ecstatic when it, I think, first came to Game Pass or Xbox. Exclusive for 6 months, then it came out elsewhere. It's Inscription. I'm actually really surprised because it's fairly new. That only came out not even a month ago. Kina's the one I played. I surprised that I don't count it as an indie game. I think it's the definition of indie is very, very
loose, yeah,
different. Because basically they're like, oh, what's not a traditional publisher system? So it's weird. I have no idea where this is gonna go. I could see Death's. I feel like I heard the most people talking about Death's Door than any of these games from the stuff, but I've also heard different stories out of 12 minutes. The different experiences people have had. So I don't really know. I would guess maybe 12 minutes or Death's Door. I don't have a vote. I can't consciously vote on that one though. So what do you got?
Yeah. 12 minutes was massive for that week that it came out. But it didn't have the staying power because again it's very narrative focused. Kina is obviously my choice. The only problem I'm conflicted the same way you are, where it's like the scale of Kina almost. Like, yes, is it technically indie? Yes, but like it had all this insane production value that kind of puts it on kind of a different level, and not in terms of like different level like you guys can't compete, but more so like just the amount of content offered in that game versus some of the others puts it in kind of a different category for me personally. But if I have to choose one of these 5, I'm going with Kina. 12 minutes, I mean that's a sick narrative. I'm not going to go into spoilers for the ending, but they're nuts for that. So yeah, no, I could 100% see 12 minutes winning. I know Death's Door is massive, especially in the PC scene. So, and same thing with Inscription. Loop Hero, I honestly don't know anything about, so I can't speak on that. Inscription and Death's Door, I can 100% seeing the kind of PC-centric world kind of pushing it and propelling them to first place. But I have to go with Kina just because I need them to win something, and this was the category that I felt that if they got to win something, it's got to be here. Again, I still think they should be Game of the Year. Like, I don't think it's fair that they're kind of reserved to Best Indie Game because I think in terms of time offering, it's not a massive departure from Resident Evil Village. In terms of production quality, I don't think it's it feels like a first-party game. If I told you that some like new Sony first-party team made that game, I don't think anybody's batting an eye at it. So I think the only problem is it's in the wrong category, to be honest with you. But that's where I'm going.
Alrighty. Next up, Best Action Game. We have Back 4 Blood, Turtle Rock, Chivalry 2 by Torn Banner Studios, Deathloop, Arcane, Far Cry 6 from Ubisoft Toronto, and Returnal by Sony's Housemarque. I feel like man, this one's a rough one. I don't know what Back 4 Blood is doing on this list. I don't know what they think.
They're nuts.
I don't know what they're thinking of going to this. I can't speak on Chivalry 2 really. So,
big in PC,
big on PC, and I just haven't had time. I've never really even heard too much about that. So it's gonna really come down to the other 3. I know Far Cry 6 had this weird sort of negativity around it. For me, that moment-to-moment gameplay of action, my vote is for Far Cry 6.
Okay.
I think Returnal had good moment-to-moment combat. I think it was just bogged down by its RNG system on how random it could be and is designed. I know they fixed it slightly with a few patches, but Returnal made me very frustrated with its action gameplay. So that's why I really don't want to get to it. I think they're gonna just give it to Deathloop. I think people are just, again, everything we talked about Deathloop. I've seen a lot of the gameplay of Deathloop, and I do like it. I've seen a lot of in Dishonored it was called the blink ability, but the little teleport ability, I don't know what they call it in Deathloop. The actual gameplay of it looks solid, though there's like weird AI issues and everything like that. But I think that moment controlling, like when I see people play this game, I was like, I want to feel that in a different game. So I'm not mad at it if it goes to Deathloop. I'm not mad if it goes to Returnal either.
Yeah.
I don't think it'll go to Far Cry just because people are gonna go for the more of the same nonsense. But I think the combat in Far Cry is super, super tight. Where are you leaning on in this subject?
Yeah, so I could see it going. So Chivalry 2, I know, is very well beloved. I've watched lots of videos on it. The game looks awesome. I don't see it winning, though, just because I don't think it has the mainstream appeal of a lot of the others. Mm-hmm. Back 4 Blood, I think I'm fine with the nomination, I guess. But no. Stop it.
Yep.
Deathloop is... Yeah, I could see it winning. The only thing is whether or not Returnal wins in what was the other category it was in? Oh, best game direction. If it doesn't win in best game direction, I'd like it to win best action. But if it can get that, then I wouldn't be. Far Cry 6, I'd be really surprised if it won actually, just because again the gameplay loop was. This is essentially the same gameplay loop since Far Cry 3, and so I just don't see other.
Correct.
I don't see non-Super Far Cry fans even giving it like the light of day. You know what I mean? Like I don't think people really care outside of people who really like Far Cry, like you and I. But so I think if I had to choose one, I'm probably going with Returnal. I'm not mad if Deathloop wins. I'm certainly not mad if Far Cry wins. I just don't think it's going to happen. The only one that I think is just like absolute. The only one that if it wins, I'm just like get out of here is Back 4 Blood. Like I think they're bugging with that one. But again, don't think it's a bad game. But it's brand new and it feels like Left 4 Dead in all kind of the bad ways. So
exactly.
No thanks.
Exactly. Best action adventure game: Guardians of the Galaxy, Metroid Dread, Psychonauts 2, Resident Evil Village, and Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart. I think hands down it's gonna go to Metroid Dread. It's hard because their best action adventure is for the best action adventure game combining combat with traversal and puzzle solving. Guardians had great combat. There was no real traversal or puzzle solving, so I don't even know why that's really there. It was such a linear experience. Same with Ratchet & Clank. What we saw in Ratchet & Clank was sort of standard for a Ratchet & Clank game. Same with Resident Evil. I'm also confused on why that one's on the list, because the puzzles in Resident Evil are never... Like, that's not what they're known for. It's never that hard. It's always fine. The diamond key for the diamond lock, and so have you, and stuff. So I'm really probably going to see it come down to Psychonauts 2 and Metroid Dread. Psychonauts 2 is just such more of a almost platformer with very low combat, which is why I think Metroid Dread, unless you ask David Jaffe, gets everything correct. I think it gets the puzzle solving, the backtracking, the Metroidvania style is what really just makes sense to me. I think it'll go there, and I would also have to give my vote there, though I've not beaten Metroid Dread. I just understand it. I almost like understand the definition, and like even from just watching a lot of the Metroid Dread, that is gonna be it. I think it has to be, almost hands down. I'd be surprised if it was anything else. Maybe Psychonauts 2, but I'd be surprised. What do you think?
Yeah, I think if Guardians wins anything, it has to be in this category. So I think this is their chance for an action adventure game. You're talking about combat, traversal puzzles. That's where that's what it does. So I think that's a very fair placement for it. But personally, I think a top tier Metroidvania is really hard to beat by those definitions. In terms of puzzle, traversal, and combat, specifically with Metroid Dread. If this was like Samus Returns, I could say that, the combat would get edged out by Guardians of the Galaxy. But the combat of Metroid Dread, with these abilities, the way it runs, that steady frame rate, it's pretty hard to beat. So I'm definitely going for Metroid Dread, but I think Guardians is a very close second for me. The rest of them, I think it's a little bit farther for me, based on the definitions of what is being applied there. Ratchet and Clank, again, fun combat, but traversal puzzles, not really a thing. Resident Evil, great traversal, great puzzles. The combat is pretty straightforward. It's kind of a conventional shooter. And then Psychonauts, again, fun environmental stuff, solid platforming, but not really doing too much for me in terms of kind of unique puzzle generation and stuff like that. So,
All right. Next up, a weird one. Best role playing, and the nominations are really awkward. We have Cyberpunk 2077, Monster Hunter Rise, Scarlet Nexus, Shin Megami Tensei 5, and Tales of Arise. Now, it's really, really weird to have to choose between these, because they are, yes, role-playing games to an extent, but besides Shin Megami Tensei and Tales of Arise, I don't really feel... Actually, Shin Megami Tensei, and Monster Hunter Rise are more like the actual RPG games, not just because of their combat and everything, but just like where everything works together, where Scarlet Nexus, I was a huge fan of Scarlet Nexus, but the RPG mechanics in the game actually, in my opinion, worsen the experience. The game needs to be way more linear, not linear, but a little bit more streamlined and action based, where the role playing stuff actually kind of bogged it down for me, the equipment and all that kind of extra nonsense. Cyberpunk 2077, I understand it's considered an RPG. That's a shooter for me. That was a shooter. I know the skill trees and stuff were in there, and it was done well, but not done brand new where the system was like revolutionary. Despite the bugs and everything on the game, the system worked and it was great, but it was enhancing the shooting and the traversing for me. So I don't really have a vote because as much as I want to play Shin Megami Tensei 5 and Tales of Arise, I have not gotten a chance to. The games are these are such time sink games. I haven't had the chance. I don't know where this one would go. I like, if I had to guess who would win this one, just by the amount of people who've played it, it would probably be Cyberpunk or Monster Hunter Rise. Because I know the cult following that is Monster Hunter, and it would have to be them. But yeah, I don't know. I can, in a world I can see each one of these, maybe not Scarlet Nexus, win. Win this best RPG. What do you think? What do you think is going on with this?
Yeah, this is tricky because I've only played 2 of these games, and I've only dived deep into one of those 2. So I can't speak really definitively on there. If I had to choose one that I think is going to win, it's definitely going to be Monster Hunter. I don't think they have the balls to go with Cyberpunk. Like, there's no way. There's no way. I think they can't not give them a nod in some regard, I guess, because of just how big of a game it is and how many people played it. And there are people who do love that game. I myself liked it. It's just riddled with technical issues. But I don't think they know it would be World War III if Monster Hunter Rise loses to Cyberpunk 2077, a game that a majority of people can't even run right now. Like it's crazy. Shin Megami Tensei, I can also see that is a massive game, very well beloved, especially that. And that's the Switch RPG this year, pretty much. And Tales has a very dedicated following that goes way back. So, but that's, again, it's more a hardcore experience. So I think in terms of kind of that mainstream thing, Monster Hunter Rise, I haven't heard too much negative about that game. And I think the fan base is so energetic around that I think if it has to be between 2, it's between Monster Hunter Rise and Shin Megami Tensei for sure. But I can't speak definitively about like which one I choose, I guess, other than Monster Hunter maybe, because I've watched a lot of people play that game, but I haven't played enough of them. Even though Cyberpunk's the one that I went deep into, I'm not even voting for Cyberpunk because I think that's nuts. Because the RPG mechanics of Cyberpunk 2077 are fine at best. It's not the strongest part of it. I don't know what the strongest part of that game is, but I think overall the experience is fun. But it's certainly not the RPG mechanics that are award worthy.
Exactly. Best fighting game. So we've got Demon Slayer, Kimetsu no Yaiba, The Hinokami Chronicles by CyberConnect. Guilty Gear Strive Arc System Works. Melty Blood Type Lumina by French Bread. Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl by Game Milf and Fairplay Labs. And then Virtual Fighter 5 Ultimate Showdown over here by Sega. You know me, obviously I'm a huge fighting game fan. I don't like when we get ports and they're refreshed to be new games. So Virtual Fighter 5 is dreaming if they're thinking they're anywhere near this. Same with Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl. It was such a weird, dumb, fun game. It was more like I can't believe this exists. A little bit of polish in that game actually would have been fighting game of the year. But again, they cheaply dropped it out of nowhere, so it's not up there. So it's obviously going to be between the top 3, and I think just the fan base behind Demon Slayer. The show just came back, season 2. People were hyped on the movie, and the gameplay and like moment-to-moment fighting is so solid. Though it's not new, it is an altered version of like the Naruto games. Obviously, that's what they made. I think it has to go down to Demon Slayer. I can see it probably being Guilty Gear Strive. I know Guilty Gear and people love Arc System Works. My issue is most Arc System games play the same. And that's just we get so many of them so constantly. Melty Blood I have not played. I've actually just been made aware of Melty Blood like a week ago. So I don't know what's going on with that. But my guess would be one of these top 3. I would vote for Demon Slayer, and I can see Demon Slayer or Guilty Gear taking it. just because of the fan base around those games. I know you're not huge into fighting games, but you have a quick guess?
I've literally never played any of these games, so I can't even definitively speak.
Yeah.
I've never heard of Melty Blood in my life. Nickelodeon All-Star, besides memes, I don't know anything about it. Virtua Fighter, I don't know. I love Guilty Gear, but I don't know if I've played this one. Like, I don't know the difference between them, because that's the problem with the fighting game industry, is there's just so many iterations of some of these, especially the Japanese fighters, that like I have no clue which one I played. And Demon Slayer, that's CyberConnect, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so I played obviously tons of CyberConnect games through like Naruto, but I don't know how that compares to it. So no, I can't speak definitively on this one.
All right, so we'll keep going. We'll see. I'm interested to see where that one rolls out through, just because it's such a weird. I feel like every year it's always an awkward fighting game one. Most anticipated game, we have Elden Ring from Software, God of War Ragnarok from Sony Santa Monica, Horizon Forbidden West by Guerrilla, Starfield, Bethesda Game Studios, and Microsoft, and the sequel to The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild, because we still don't have a title for that game. This is a rough one. This is a hard one, because I know each one of these games has this huge fan base, and I actually think the only one that I know is probably not nearly anticipated for is Horizon.
Correct.
I think that one's actually, it's weird that's on the list. If I had to vote, if I was on the board and they were like, what do I have to go? I'm more excited for the sequel to the Breath of the Wild, only for the fact that I'm hoping it's going to escalate what we've played in Breath of the Wild to a new level. I think they heard the fan base. I think we're going to get some of these old mechanics back, and I think it's going to be not a brand new experience, but just a more expanded version of what we got in Breath of the Wild. And I'm hoping it's able to balance older Legend of Zelda to newer Legend of Zelda, and to really cohesively work together. I understand people are all over Starfield. We haven't seen anything worth being excited. If they show another screenshot of an astronaut, I will lose my mind. I don't know what they think they're doing on Twitter. Horizon, super excited for Horizon. I'm excited to actually replay the first one soon and get through it, but from what we've seen, it is more Horizon, essentially, which is not bad. It just doesn't make me super excited, where I'm like, I can't wait to get my hands on it for this new experience. I know the experience that I'm gonna get when I play Horizon, and same with God of War Ragnarok. I feel like I know what that moment to moment is going to be, and it's really the story and the characters that drive those two games for me, which is why I get that. Elden Ring, I'm not a From Software guy. It looks fantastic from what I've seen. I attempted to get into the beta personal testing thing. I didn't even get the rejection letter that they sent out to certain people, which I'm glad I didn't even get that, because that's just like even worse. It's gonna, when I think which one will win, it'll probably be down to Elden Ring or Breath of the Wild, and I think with the reaction that Breath of the Wild had for years and that first year out there, it's gonna be Breath of the Wild that people are gonna say they're most anticipated for, because we don't know. Elden Ring is a Soulsborne game, and so we kind of see what we're gonna get with that already. What are you guessing for this one? Where are you leaning?
Yeah, so I mean, I have a number of thoughts. So yeah, I agree with you completely. Horizon seems a little out of place here. I think it's very anticipated amongst PlayStation fans. I don't think the rest of the industry is. I don't think Horizon's really a draw like these other franchises are, where it's like people, wherever Elden Ring is landing, that's like the people are getting consoles for that. You know what I mean? Like, and same thing with like Breath of the Wild. That's gonna sell a lot of Switches. Where it's like, Horizon, it's like if you know, you know. God of War, that's a big one. I know that. The problem, I would say, for me, it comes down, like you, with Elden Ring or Breath of the Wild. Thing about it is, FromSoft fans are kind of a different breed of like they don't play about their games, but the thing is, it has the added bonus of being so close. I think it's in February, just like Horizon, so it's right around the corner. So I think a lot of the anticipation, as excited as a lot of people are, it's like right around the corner. Where Breath of the Wild, we don't know where that's landing, so and they don't talk much about it. So
nope.
Yeah, Breath of the Wild, I feel like might be the one to win the most anticipated game, but I would not be surprised at all if Elden Ring takes it. The problem with Starfield is it's a new IP that's way far off. So I think this has a chance to be the most anticipated game in maybe 2 years, when it's a little bit closer to dropping in 2023. Or not 2 years, I'm wilding. A year. But I think for now, it's a little too out there, and not enough people know unless you're really paying attention and kind of in that Bethesda world to even know that that's even coming. Once they actually drop a trailer, I think that's going to set the world on fire, and people are going to be like, oh my god, Fallout in space, yes. But for right now, since we haven't seen anything, only really industry insiders and super like game news, I'm on IGN every day fans even really know much about Starfield, to be honest with you. That is not a name that I think kind of spilled into the mainstream, because again, besides little teaser trailers and concept art here and there, we know nothing about that game. So yeah, it's got to be Breath of the Wild most likely, but I could see it going towards Elden Ring, especially again because it's right around the corner. So I could see that be like, this is their moment, give it to them for sure.
Yeah, it would make sense. Then the last one we'll be speaking about is the best sports racing game, which is an interesting one. So we have F1 2021 that came out, FIFA 22, which I'm surprised is on the list because I heard it is not the best. Don't know much else about FIFA, but Hot Wheels Unleashed, which I remember that this game was going everywhere. Everyone was talking about this game.
Yeah.
Very high ratings for a Hot Wheels game. Forza Horizon 5 and Riders Republic. This one's a hard one. If I had to guess for the games that I keep wanting to go back to, obviously I did not play F1 2021, FIFA, or Hot Wheels Unleashed. Obviously I played Horizon 5 and Riders Republic. To the one that I want to keep playing, keep going back to, and it just feels like a cleaner experience. Not cleaner experience, but like the game I want to keep playing, and it helps and it feels like a good racing game. I would have to give it to Riders Republic, only for the options that I have. That I can go from bike to snowboard to jetpacks, all very simultaneous, very clean, quick, without issue. I think it's completely justified that Forza Horizon 5 is going to be on there. Not only that it's going to be on there, it's going to win. It has to be Forza Horizon. I would, even though not that I liked Riders Republic more, but Riders Republic spoke to me more, I would be rightfully upset if Riders Republic won or any of these other games won over Forza Horizon, because it is not only just like beautiful polished game, expands on like some of the best that Horizon has. The map is huge. My only one gripe is something that other people love, which is that almost forced multiplayer aspect. I think though I like Riders so much more because I was a little bit more surprised by it, I think hands down Forza is the best one of the year. Especially I just don't see how anyone could see any other option. So it's got to be Forza. It's Forza. It's got to be Horizon 5. I don't see how not. What do you think?
Yeah, so for me, obviously, it's Forza, and I'll tell you why it's not Riders for me. I think Riders is obviously an awesome game. I was in the beta, I played the hell out of it, but it definitely gives me the vibe of like a jack of all trades, like but master of none type situation, where like it does a ton of things and it does a ton of things well. But I think there's something to be said to a game that kind of does one thing as good as it can be done. And that's Forza for me, where it's like in terms of kind of outdoors racing, it's Forza, like period. Like it's just it does everything I'd want it to do. That's why for me, with exception for a lot of the UI stuff and then the multiplayer, if you take that out, just the gameplay, it's damn near a 10. Because it's just everything I'd ever want to it, and it plays like a dream. I've never ever felt a technical issue out of Forza. It's beautiful. The world is just well designed and gives lots of benefits to kind of exploring and just checking things out. So yeah, I love Forza. F1 I think is a great choice to have this in. I know it's massive in Europe. I played it. It's a very hardcore experience. So this is not for the casual community at all. So I feel like while you have the Forza 5s and the Riders for the more casual side, you have the F1 fans for the more hardcore side. FIFA, I can't really speak to. I haven't really played it. I know it has a fan base, I hear negative things here and there, but I wouldn't necessarily even hear positive stories because I don't really seek out them. And then Hot Wheels, I think, is a great choice just because of kind of the cultural what it meant online when people were talking about it. So I know it was a really kind of hot game this year, but I wouldn't say that it was like necessarily only there. I think it had the benefit almost of the same thing as the Nickelodeon thing, where it's like it helps to be really good and not expected to be that good. And so that's why I think Hot Wheels is a good choice. But personally, I'm going with Forza.
No, absolutely. And there's tons of other Game Award things, but it's mainly like influencers and esports teams. So we're not gonna really touch on those.
Yeah, so I guess that was all of the nominations this year. So, the Game Awards is December 9th, Thursday. So be sure to check that out, guys, and we'll see. I'm conflicted because, I love the nominations and I love the discussion around the Game Awards, but I'll be completely honest, I don't love watching it because I don't like award shows because it feels like the kind of an antiquated format of just all this extra stuff. But I do love the announcements, so we'll see. I'm probably going to watch it this year, but... sometimes I don't watch it live, so I can fast forward through the nonsense.
Yeah, it makes sense to do it that way, and I'm back and forth. I want to see the announcements. I like to be first to know, but I could also just check whatever's trending on my Twitter is usually the newest game announcement. So we'll be I don't know. Maybe I'll have it in the background on one screen and do something else separately. But I'm not that excited to. He gets a bunch, especially now that we're a little bit more with live people there. I don't know. I know he's got Imagine Dragons is playing. I think. But
that's what I mean. That's the exact kind of stuff.
I like Imagine Dragons. I don't want to watch Imagine Dragons on a stage, probably playing the song for the League of Legends show they did. So I don't know. Yeah. I don't know what they're doing there.
I don't want to watch Ubisoft bring out Jason Derulo. I'm not interested. I'm not doing
it. Exactly.
All right. So the next and last story is a pretty interesting one by Jason Schreier over there at Bloomberg. Yep. So Sony Group Core PlayStation Division is planning a new subscription service to compete with rival Microsoft Core's popular Xbox Game Pass, according to people familiar with Sony's plans and documents reviewed by Bloomberg. The service, codenamed Spartacus, will allow PlayStation owners to pay a monthly fee for access to a catalog of modern and classic games, said the people who asked not to be identified because they weren't authorized to speak to the press about the plans. When it launches, expected in the spring, so not too far, the service will merge Sony's two existing subscription plans, PlayStation Plus and PlayStation Now. Currently, PlayStation Plus is required for most online multiplayer games and offers free monthly titles, while PlayStation Now allows users to stream or download older games. Documents reviewed by Bloomberg suggest that Sony plans to retain the PlayStation Plus branding, but phase out PlayStation Now, and I guess just kind of ingratiate its features. Details on Spartacus may not be finalized, but documentation reviewed by Bloomberg outlines a service with 3 tiers. The first would include existing PlayStation Plus benefits. The second tier would offer a large catalog of PlayStation 4 and eventually PlayStation 5 games. And then the third tier will add extended demos, game streaming, a library of classic PlayStation 1, 2, and 3, and PSP games. Where is Vita? What is up with that? Maybe it's a touchback. I don't know. A representative for PlayStation did not immediately respond for comment. I'm sure they didn't. But yeah, this is a super interesting story. And yeah, this is what people have been talking about for years, which is PlayStation needs to respond. And if this is true, this is absolutely what they should be doing, a step in the right direction, because everybody would say PlayStation's obviously in first place, excellent with the software, but the services is just not there. And they needed to find a way to handle their backwards compatibility a little bit better. And I think this is a step in the right direction. I guess the only concern that I would have at this point is, first off, is this true, obviously? And second off, what's the price for this? Specifically the third tier. The third tier, I think, is the fully realized answer to Game Pass. But that means, okay, that's the high end. What's the high end price for that? Because if that's... they've already... I think it was Herman Hulse who made a comment, which is basically we don't put new games available day one just because the pricing of it wouldn't balance out. Which shows that PlayStation has a very different outlook on day one releases financially than Xbox does, which means that Game Pass's insane price proposition, which is amazing, but it's $10 to $15 a month. I doubt it's going to be that low for PlayStation, at least the third tier. There's no way. So that makes me wonder, what are they looking at? If PlayStation Plus right now, as it is what, 60? I think it is a year. That makes me think that if they're going to be adding all this new stuff and ingratiating PlayStation Now into it, you would imagine the very lowest it could be is $60, which means that it's going to be above $60 most likely. And probably less than $100. I doubt they're going to cross that threshold. So I have a lot of questions in terms of pricing. But overall, this seems like an enormous step in the right direction. It shows them thinking correctly. And if it sounds like finally they understand that, hey, say what you want about Xbox, and I know Sony for many years has had this very stupid, antiquated thinking of old games old. Who cares about old games? Nobody cares about old games. They're ugly. Stop it. It seems like a little bit of a switch in thinking where it's like, okay, so there is a demand. Despite what we thought, there is a demand here. And why give Xbox that obvious leg up on them? You know what I mean? At least compete in that field. And I think this is great. So what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it sounds great. Obviously, pricing is a big issue we've seen, especially if it's not done correctly. We just saw this with Nintendo. They upped their price, and even though there's a significantly lower, the price, the value isn't there. I mean, they just made an announcement. They're adding one Nintendo 64 game.
Yeah, and I just canceled it.
And it's
I just canceled my Nintendo.
It's the first Paper Mario.
Yeah,
that's it.
That's
what
one
they're
game.
dropping. One game. A month, almost, cause it's not even, I don't think it's out yet, so it'll be 2 months almost out from the launch of the service, and they're adding Paper Mario. So we have to see what this works with for PlayStation. Obviously, a sort of Game Pass thing. It's something we've been discussing, and I think I've even mentioned it before for years now. Roll PlayStation Plus, PlayStation Now into PlayStation Plus. Drop the name. Xbox is done. Xbox still has its Xbox Live Gold, but no one talks about it. They push all the Game Pass because Game Pass has it all together. Especially if you have Game Pass Ultimate for the PC aspect as well. So it makes sense. You start getting a little weird when you have these multiple tiers because it's like it reminds you on Xbox's old mistakes where you had Xbox Live Bronze, Silver, and Gold.
Exactly.
And so you obviously you're gonna want to push it. I would prefer probably just 2 tiers where you have just the PlayStation Plus that we have now and the currently, and then the PlayStation Plus, whatever you want to call it. I think it makes sense. I think that I think what they're also going to do is there's that PlayStation Plus catalog, or what's that PlayStation Plus thing we got for getting PS5?
Oh yeah. I forget.
I think probably
collection.
The collection. That's right. The PlayStation Plus collection. I think that probably will be pushed more, and maybe we get some cycling games in, or just an expanded list. It makes sense. I'm obviously all for this. I'm a little more worried on the back compatibility. I don't care what they say. They need to figure it out. That streaming PS3 games is not what I want to do.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. They got to figure out the PS3 thing.
Figure it out. Give me the option, because right now, like if I see a game on Game Pass, I will sometimes hit the cloud version just to test it out to see if it's worth my time to download. Cool. Give me the option. Figure it out. You've had the time. I don't know what you need to do. Go ask Phil Spencer. Tell him to show you how to figure it out, because it's ridiculous that if they're going to bring a Resistance trilogy and I have to stream Resistance 1, 2, and 3, it's really unacceptable at this point. It's 2021. You're telling me I have to go... One, you don't re-release these games on PS4 in a collection of any sorts. Same with the the 2 main Infamous games. You're just leaving these games stranded, and you own them. You're refreshing the IPs. You don't let it go. The 3 Killzone games you can't play. It's unacceptable. I do not want to stream them. Don't you dare tell me that's the only way we could figure out. You figure it out. You figure that out. You guys did that, not us. Xbox figured it out, and it's weird. So it sounds great. I would love to have a collection of PS1, PS2, PS3 games. Very much like we're saying, like an answer to Game Pass that would work well, because they have so many IPs that are stuck and that they own. White Knight Chronicles is an RPG I've been always wanting to play on PS3. There's 2 of them, and the games are expensive. And then also, if I were to get them, I would have to hook up my PS3 and hope it doesn't explode in playing it. I'm finally going to sit down and play Metal Gear Solid 4. I had to hook up my beefy PS3 for it, because not only is it not available anywhere else, it doesn't work on my PS4, it doesn't work on my PS5. that's my bigger thing is if it's true that they can get these games on PS5 somehow, it would even on PS4, and I could see that service coming to PS4 as well. It would be great. I think it's pushing their luck when they keep talking about game streaming in the library, because that seems to be their answer constantly is you can stream PS3 games. That's not what I want to do. The PSP game thing is really interesting. Because there are some PSP games that I would love to go back and play through. I know they're like more adjacent games to what we've seen, but I do think if they can get the PSP games right, then with some tweaking, you probably can get Vita games on there again, and Vita can sort of live again.
At least some of them, again. Yeah.
Not live again, yeah, but there are some ones that are stuck there. There's an Uncharted game that's stuck on Vita. So Killzone, I think there's a Killzone game too on
Freedom
there.
Wars.
Freedom Wars is sadly stuck on there. So it'd be an interesting full rollout, and I can't wait to hear more about it. I'm assuming they would probably do it during a state of play. I would have to assume it'd have to be a state of play where they would want to really take their time. But get someone else. Don't bring Mark Cerny out on to do this, because I don't want him talking about this. I want someone with a little bit of energy and be like, look, this is now the catalog. Here's the new prices. Obviously, tier 1 better be the same tier we have now. Or I just hope it's marketed right, because this is a lot of information. Obviously, some of it's got to be true, because Jason Schreier won't feel how you feel about him. He won't really come out with some stuff unless he verifies it like 4 or 5 times, which is the right way to do it. So this exists in a certain way. I don't want to get my hopes too high, because the second they hit me with now you can stream your PS3 games to your PS5, it's over for me, because it's not acceptable. It's not acceptable at this time. So we'll have to hear about something soon. Because I assume this will be, as it's rolled out, will be kind of botched in a sense. Game Pass. I had an Xbox One, so when Game Pass first started releasing, it was terrible. It was a pretty bad. Not only the selection, but the downloading of it was pretty bad. But obviously, different story a couple years later. So excited to see what comes from all this.
Yeah, and I was just thinking right now, I hope for Sony's sake that this story is true, because imagine if it's not. Imagine it's just a rumor, and they're just like, yikes, just nothing. They still have no answer. So I'm really hoping they can figure something out, and I'm really curious to see how robust also this is. Like who's willing to play ball. Obviously, people are going to be willing to play ball with Sony, but like with the Game Pass, you have the EA thing. And now they have the Bethesda thing that they bought. Who's going to link up with Sony? Like, will they find a way to? It would. I think if I was Sony and I was launching a streaming service, the one people that you need to go towards is Ubisoft, and finding a way to ingratiate Uplay in the same way EA did with Game Pass. I think that
would be so solid. That'd be almost.
I think that's a very smart idea. So if you could say, hey, day one on our streaming service, yes, you have all these first-party games that were, The Resistance, the Infamous, and Uncharted and all that. But also, how awesome would it be, and also the Ezio trilogy, and also Far Cry, 3, 4, 5, and 6. You know what I mean? Like that. That I think would be a great answer to Game Passes, if you can kind of pull on one major publisher. They need to link up with someone and get some of those to fill out the catalog a little bit, because thankfully Sony's first party is very good, very robust. From multiple generations, but it always helps to have a little bit of more diversity in content, because Sony's first party is limited in terms of the genres that they have available. So being able to close that gap, especially on the multiplayer front, would be really great for them to do. So I'm gonna keep an eye on that, but I'm sure Jason will let us know if they figure out something. He always gets the great scoops. But I'm feeling great about this story, because I think it's a very logical thing. And again, if Bloomberg reports on it, chances are they heard something from somebody reputable. They don't just report on BS there. So I'm feeling good about it. But yeah, good show. We crossed 2 hours.
Yeah, not a bad one back.
Yeah. So we're happy to be back, and we can't wait to get into more stories with you guys in the upcoming weeks. I would imagine, since next week is our last show before the end of the year, actually, let's see, the 22nd, and then it will be January. We'll probably be able to do our Games of the Year announcements there, so we'll sync up offline to figure that out, and we'll have that for you guys next week. It'll be a really interesting discussion.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
All right, so this was the NeoVintage podcast. I'm Jabril, and I'm here with
Steve. Hope you guys enjoyed.
And we'll see you guys on the next episode. Bye.
Take care.